My name is Dr. Susan Drysdale, and I'm a psychotherapist with 30 years of experience in the field of mental health. The populations I work with are dealing with depression, anxiety, grief, senior issues, psychosomatic illness, chronic illness, addictions, and relationship issues. One caveat is that I am not a medical doctor, I'm a psychologist, and I apologize that I was not able to commit all of this to memory. By way of introduction, I would like to speak about human evolution, which has prepared us to respond to threats that we can see, identify, and respond to. But this virus is perceived but invisible. There are all sorts of unknown factors. There's no predictability. There are contradictory facts being thrown at us continuously. Many activities that we used to use to deal with intense emotions, such as parties and movies and social activities and bars, they have been removed from our repertoire for coping. These are all ingredients leading to increased anxiety for many of us. Given what is happening in the world right now, it is normal to be anxious. But there is a difference between judicious fear that leads to appropriate behavior and panic, which leads to an inability to function. There will be individual differences in our reactions to trauma. This will be due to our previous experiences with trauma, our psychological and our physiological predispositions, and the parenting style in our families. There is the pandemic as an objective reality, but there is the pandemic as a subjective experience which is unique to each individual human being. In this presentation, I will discuss ideas to help you cope better with everything that is going on in today's world. If you need more information or you find some of this confusing, you can watch the video several times. There will be handouts connected with this talk, and you can go to the internet on all of the topics that I am presenting. First of all, I am going to present certain basic concepts dealing with the nervous system. The autonomic nervous system takes in information, proceeds to process it, and decides how to react. It regulates key involuntary functions of the body, such as the heart and the intestines. It is divided into the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. The brain is often thought of being divided into three parts. There's the reptilian brain, which is the part of the brain we are born with. It's called the instinctual brain. There is the limbic system. It's the emotional or feeling part of the brain, and it is formed by experience. And then there is the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational or thinking brain. There is a concept called neuroception. This is the process by which we take in information without even being aware. The brain evaluates the information, then reacts and responds to cues inside the body, in the environment, and between people. When there is a neuroceptive match, this means that the autonomic state will bring the energy necessary to manage any experience. When there is a mismatch, there is either an inability to calm the defense systems in a safe environment, or the defense systems are not activated appropriately in a risk environment. There are three pathways of response in the nervous system. There is the top level, where a person can connect and communicate and be open to options. This is a regulating state where safe stories can be created. The middle level is the anxious, alarmed state where we mobilize for fight or flight. We protect ourselves through action. The lowest level is where we become overwhelmed and immobilized by fear. When there are more cues of safety than danger, we are ready for connection and change, and new stories can emerge. When there are more cues of danger, survival responses are activated. Sometimes we are stuck in an old story where change is not possible. So we need to find ways to access the top level of response, where we can connect and feel safe. Connection is the key here. We do this by communicating with other people. Emails, phone, Zoom, texting, in person with physical distancing when necessary. Also through music and art and nature and spiritual endeavors. At this top level, we are able to create safe stories when there is a choice between outcomes. Which reminds me of a time I was talking to a client, and she was telling me about how she felt about a particular situation, and I said, what story are you telling yourself? We all can tell ourselves different stories about different events. We have to learn how to tell ourselves safe stories when there's a choice. When there is a trauma, there is a breakdown of connection to others. This occurs when the prefrontal cortex shuts down and the limbic system takes over. More and more upset will lead to the use of more survival techniques, fight or flight or immobilization. These are the middle or the lower levels. When there is trauma, there is uncertainty, loss of predictability, isolation, and our sense of safety is gone. The goal is not to re-experience past traumas when we are going through a present-day trauma. With a history of trauma, we often go back to earlier ways of reacting. The isolation and the uncertainty in the world right now are traumatizing to some individuals. To deal with the loss of predictability, we need to create our own schedules, our plans, and calendars of events. To avoid immobilization, we need to take action, give ourselves a sense of purpose. We need to focus on the skills we have and new goals that we can create. To self-regulate, it is helpful to practice yoga, meditation, and mindfulness. I'll come back to mindfulness later because it is a very important concept. To create a sense of safety, and this is the key, we need to connect through voices, faces, and touch when possible. I would now like to talk about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems. What I'm doing here is looking at the three pathways of response in a slightly different way. The parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous systems This, we're very often able to change behavior, and when we change behavior, the symptoms will sometimes dissipate. The types of inaccurate thinking patterns include statements that have the word should, as in, oh, I should have known better, or the words never, or the words always, or black and white thinking, or mind reading, or jumping to conclusions, or catastrophizing. Changing thinking patterns can go a long way towards solving problems. Also, if a thought or a behavior is causing problems, figure out if you can change it. Coming to the concept of mindfulness, which is extremely important at all times, but at this point in history, it couldn't be more important. It means paying attention in the present moment, on purpose, without judgment. That's the tough part, without judgment. It is important to use the breath to bring our attention back to the present moment. We learn a way to deal with problems without needing to solve them instantly. Focus on the breath, the body, thoughts, emotions, whatever is present right in the moment, even unpleasant sensations such as anxiety, all the while taking a non-judgmental stance, all the while noticing that everything changes. You become aware of the changing nature of all feelings, which helps you get through the tough ones because they will change. Mindfulness helps us learn that all thoughts, all feelings are temporary, even the good ones. Paying attention to the present moment takes the focus away from the future and the what-ifs. We can usually handle what is going in the present moment. The future unknown and uncertainties are what become overwhelming. The practice of mindfulness keeps us in the present that we can deal with, helps us to be okay with changes from one minute to the next. Instead of focusing on the unknown and the unpredictable, focus on what we do know and what we can do right now. And taking action will help you feel more in control. Coming to the concept of grief work. The idea of grieving is very important during these times, and a lot of people forget it. Realize that many of us are grieving many different losses. People who have died, feeling as safe as we used to, a job, a home, financial security, a way of life, predictability, friendships lost for various reasons associated with the pandemic, leadership that used to bring us together in difficult times instead of creating divisions. Many of these losses will make us recall other losses in our past, thereby making the grieving more intense. The more losses and changes that occur at the same time, the more difficult the grieving process will be. Allow yourself to feel sad or anxious or angry about the changes and the losses, but try to find ways to balance the intensity of the difficult emotions with uplifting ones, such as gratitude. Keep a journal. Concentrate on the small things we all take for granted, or the experiences that are bigger than just you and me. Be in nature. Look at the sky, the stars at night. Gaze at the mountains. Watch wildlife. Look at flowers, children playing, and your pets. Experience the music and the art that you love, things that take you out of and beyond yourself. Do this virtually if necessary. What I'd like to do now is just give you a summary of some practical ideas for dealing with any type of anxiety, and in particular dealing with life during this pandemic. Some of these ideas were discussed during my first presentation, which you can find on my website, and I'll also be summarizing some of the ideas that I just gave you in this presentation. Number one, first and foremost, find ways to connect to others. We shouldn't be social distancing, we should be physical distancing. Think about those erroneous thinking patterns. Try to fix them if you can. Create daily routines, weekly routines. Take it one day at a time. Do some sort of exercise or movement every day if possible. Allow yourself to grieve for the losses and the changes, but find things to be grateful for. Ask for help and support. Each day, do 3 things. Do something to take care of yourself, do something that's productive, and do something that's fun. Develop a new talent, something you've been putting off for lack of time. Deepen your spiritual life. Use prayer and other spiritual practices. Start a project you've been meaning to get to. Remember how you got through other tough times in your life. Remember, all feelings ebb and flow, even if the underlying reason remains. Practice mindfulness every day, several times a day, all day long if you can. Be your own leader. Make decisions that work for you. Practice loving kindness first and foremost towards yourself, and then those around you. Consider supplements or medications if necessary. Find a balance between action and stillness, and consider seeking professional help. I'd like to read you a story that someone gave to me the other day, which I thought was absolutely perfect for these times. It's a story, author Tara Brach, I will give her credence. I will give her, she wrote the story, and she tells the story of how the British decided to build a golf course in Calcutta, India. I don't know when this was. Once the course was built and the golfers began to play, the monkeys in the surrounding jungles joined in the fun. The monkeys picked up the golf balls after the golfers hit them and tossed the balls in all different directions. The exasperated golfers brainstormed on how they could control the monkeys' behavior. First, they built fences around the golf course, but the monkeys are excellent climbers, so that solution didn't work. Next, they tried distracting the monkeys with bananas and other fruit, but all that did was bring in more monkeys who wanted dinner and they wanted to have some fun. Finally, they tried trapping the monkeys and relocating them back to the jungle, but that idea didn't work either. So the British decided that for this course in Calcutta, India, the new rule would be that the golfer played where the monkey dropped the ball. In other words, if you can't beat them, play along with them. I thought that story was absolutely perfect for what we're going through right now. In conclusion, remember that anxiety is a sensation which does not necessarily represent the reality of the danger. And lastly, ask for help. It is not a sign of weakness to know that you need help and to reach out and ask for it.